Welcome to Fruit Snacks, a weekday podcast that covers big ideas about the Christian worldview in a bite-sized format. Hey everyone, today we're looking at Psalm 7. And the main theme of this psalm, if I had to summarize it, is that God is our refuge. So I hope that this episode will be an encouragement to you, because it certainly was to me as I was reading through this psalm and considering the principles that God has for us here. So first of all, I want to jump in sort of right into the middle and the deep end of this psalm and start with verses 8 and verse 11. Because I want us to begin with this concept or this principle that God is the just judge over all of creation. That's sort of like our Charles Dickens Christmas story, The Marleys Were Dead to begin with, right? You have to start there, because if you don't, then some of the thinking that follows may or may not click. And so if we start here with this premise that God is the just judge over all of creation, that helps us frame the rest of this psalm and what exactly the psalmist is thinking. So it is because of this that God is the just judge, that God will judge evil. In fact, and we mentioned this a few weeks ago when we covered God's justice as an attribute, God must judge evil. And he must vindicate the righteous. It is good for God to do these things. And so if God is going to be a just judge, then he must judge evil. He cannot simply wink at it or let it slide or just forgive it. And that is not because God somehow doesn't have the strength of character to just forgive like you or I would think that we need to do in an interpersonal conflict. It is because God isn't just a person in the sense of the wrongdoing happening is on a one-to-one personal level where God can just forgive it as if it only happened to him. God is also the just judge of the earth, meaning he is responsible for making sure that justice is served and that wrongs done to others are rightly punished. So David appeals to this theological truth here that God is just judge, and he is being pursued by unnamed pursuers, and he has done no wrong as far as he can tell. In fact, what's very interesting about this is in verses 3 to 5, and in the second half of verse 8, he basically invites God's wrath and judgment if he's done anything wrong. He says, basically, judge me, God. If I have sinned, then you know what? Let me get what I deserve. Because David understands this sense of justice, that God needs to punish sin because he wouldn't be good or just if he didn't. And so he says, listen, if I deserve this, then don't keep it back from me. Then let me get what I deserve for my sin. But David goes on to say, God, if I'm innocent, if I don't deserve what is happening to me right now, then you need to crush my enemies, because what they are then doing is unjust and it's wrong. And so the principle that I think we would all do well to take from this, devotionally speaking, is to do exactly what David did. Is when we find ourselves in a circumstance that is difficult, that we don't understand, what David did was he looked inwardly first, and he earnestly searched his own heart, his own life for sin within himself. And he honestly before God said, listen, if there's sin in me, if there's something that I am blind to, then let's deal with it. Let's get it out on the table right now, and let's take care of it. And if there are consequences that I need to bear as a result of that, so be it. And that's an amazing first place to go when we're dealing with difficulties, because it's not one that we often would think of, but this is where David goes. And then from there, once we are confident that our sin has been dealt with, or that we are not directly responsible through our own sinful decisions and choices for what's happening around us, then we need to do what David did second, which is to trust that there is nothing that escapes God's sight. David was tired of all of the evil around him. And to that, I would just give a big ol' amen. Me too. As I look around the world today, I am so tired and weary of all the evil. It just makes my soul tired. And even in the midst of all this great evil, though, our refuge is in God. In fact, in Psalm 27, I'll leave you with a verse from another psalm. The psalmist says, "Some trust in chariots and horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God." I hope today that is where your trust is, and that you can take refuge in God and trust that He is the just judge of all the earth.